Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast, our first Nightly News Podcast in 2018. We are sitting in today with Sutedjo.
Hi, everyone.
Yuli, thank you so very much for joining us on this. We're recording this over break, so thank you very much, Yuli, for taking time out to be here. And we're also here with our most prolific and favorite guest, Adrienne Thoman. Adrienne, how's it going?
Happy New Year.
Adrienne, we have a lot of big things, and actually part of what I want to do today also is take a look at some of the other things we have in the winter term, seeing as this is the first of many podcasts this term, but also the first of 3 with you. I also want to give you an opportunity to take a look beyond January, if you'd like, and see if there's anything down the line you want to chat about. So the very first thing that I'd like to chat with you about is the Winter Club Fair. That's going to take place on January the 10th from 4 to 6 p.m. outside the Night and Day Cafe. Too bad we can't do it outside, but I
little chilly.
think it'll be a little bit too cold for that. So my question about Club Fair is 2 terms ago, you started sort of a different type of Club Fair. Typically in the past, we'd done this at Common Hour, but unfortunately, you'd said that you'd found that too many conflicts were going on during the Common Hour time. So that was part of the reason that you went to the evening Club Fair. So can you give us just a little bit of feedback on how that's gone since you've moved it to the 4 to 6 time slot?
You know, with anything, I think it's important to mix things up. You know, things that are done the way they've always been done, because they've always been done that way, isn't necessarily the best solution. So I'm not saying that this is the perfect solution or that it'll stay as the way we'll do it, but it's a fun way to mix things up and try some new things. So I think we have been able to get some new energy around it. We have free wings for the students. They're able to stay and hang out. I think it's exciting. You know, I'm not going to speak for the students, but they seem excited to be there and be a part of the event.
Well, Adrienne, you had how many? You counted well over 100 attendees last time, and that to me was something, because you said you'd printed off 100 passports, and to be honest, to have over 100 people at something like this, I'm not even sure that the traditional club fairs ever got to 100 people. I mean, I think that's saying something. So, and of course, free food's always a good draw for college students.
Yeah,
always.
And they do a good job with the wings. It was something that was really quick. And most people maybe stayed 15, 20 minutes, but it was still an opportunity for them to come down and learn more about what we offer on campus. Because if it's one thing I'm sure that you hate, it's when people say, oh, there's nothing to do here on campus, And of course, that's, part of why we have you on every month. But this club fair, to me, gives us a real opportunity from a club perspective to get in front of people that we may not otherwise have the opportunity to. So even if they don't join right then and there, just to know that we exist, that's actually helped us in the past. And what I mean by that is there have been several students who met myself and Yuli and other people from the club at Club Fair, and then they didn't join that term necessarily, but later on that term or in future terms, they sought us out. Hey, I remember you guys from the club fair. I'd really like to get involved with what you're doing.
And that's the thing. The first time a student comes to club fair, they're going to see the 20 clubs that are there that are represented, and they may think, oh, that sounds interesting, but it's not for me, or it's not right now. But we continue to grow and change and learn, and maybe we're looking at different, as we take our classes and our coursework, interests grow and develop, and then they're like, oh, I remember that club. I'm going to go and check them out.
It's extremely overwhelming, too. I mean, we have so many different clubs. Do you have a current count on how many clubs we have on campus?
I want to say we're close to 20. I think it might be 17 or 18 official.
I mean, when you walked into a room and there's 17 different clubs vying for your services, it's almost like being a free agent out in a major sport. You come in and you see all these awesome things. And the thing is all of our different clubs, no matter what they are still provide some type of value to a student.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so, Yuli, let me just go to you here real quick. What is it about joining the clubs? I mean, you are in... I can't even count how many clubs you're in.
Can we just say everything?
Now, and I've seen your resume, and I think it's interesting how you quantify what you've done in the course on your resume in the clubs. So can you tell us what it means to you to be involved with all the clubs here on campus?
It means a lot to me because with different clubs that I'm in, it teaches me different skills on how to be leaders and also doing the stuff that I need to do for the future, like the Nightly News Media Club teach me how like better with my writing style, and then the SGA creating leadership chances to me to learn and guide others and working with a team, and then SMAP is bringing diversity, so it means a lot to me. And then being able to be serving and a part of the clubs, each clubs that I have been, it's really great. It's really a pleasant and enjoyable experience.
Well, to be honest with you, Yuli, I mean, if you think about it, you're covering some of the most important skills that an employer is looking for. Number one being leadership.
Yes.
You are obviously our SGA president. You are vice president of the media club. You're heavily involved in other clubs. Leadership is so key, and you can say that. You can say, you know, when I was SGA president, here's some of the initiatives that we did, and that's huge. Diversity also is a major skill that a lot of our employers out there are looking for in today's day and age, and you can quantify both of those skills. And then certainly with what you've done in the Nightly News, that's what you're trying to get into, so that also provides you some really, really important experience. So I think that you are an excellent template for how clubs can be used. Now, Adrienne, from your perspective, what does it mean, like, if you were hiring somebody, what would it mean to you to see all of this involvement on their resume?
Well, I definitely take it as a positive because I know that there are certain skills they're going to come in with. They have already demonstrated by participation in the club or group that they can work with others, which I haven't found a job yet that doesn't involve working with other people.
Yes.
It's huge. And Yuli's case in particular, she is going to come into that interview and say, I was involved in SGA, and not only was I in that club, not only was I president, but here's the concrete things that we did. I produced the 2018 student discount card. I helped to do this, A, B, and C. We did a survey. We did assessment. Like all these great experiences beyond I mean, she's learning great things in the classroom as well, but here's tangible, actual things that she's been able to do and share. That's awesome.
Well, so one more time, that's the Winter Club Fair. That's going to be happening on Wednesday, January 10th, outside the Night and Day Cafe from 4 to 6 p.m. Come on by and talk to some of our club leaders, and you'll also be sent home with some free wings and fries, which is something wonderful that the SGA does for us. Some other things that we have coming up, and something that avid fans of the podcast are going to hear all about, is the Humanities Film Series that we have coming up. This is something that's been dreamed up in part by Brant Ellsworth, who you've also heard on the podcast. We had him on in the fall. And one of the things that we've wanted to do, and we spoke briefly about this when he was on, but he really wants to give our faculty an opportunity to invite the community into our campus, certainly give an excellent experience for our students here that live on campus, and certainly those who would like to come in for the evening. And it's something that we are all, as a humanities department, very passionate about. In fact, I will be taking the reins in April for the Big Lebowski, but we will hear much, much more about that later on down the line. This month, in January, on the 26th, we will get to hear more about Jaws from Professor Jared Reif. Now, Jared will be on later in the term to talk more specifically about this. But Adrienne, what was some of the thought processes behind starting this, and what were some of maybe the difficulties that came with, because we've been talking about this for about 6 months now. So where did this come from, and tell us a little bit more about the process of getting these films booked.
Well, I'm so excited that we finally were able to make this happen. I know the faculty, Jared Reif, Professor Reif in particular, was so passionate about wanting to start this film series. I know he's been collaborating with you and the other faculty members. And we were able to, they connected with Professor Bixler, got the theater booked. And then through my office, we're going to be able to help to pay the licensing fees to help to show the movies. So it really is a great collaboration of all parts. And I love the fact that it's going to be not only staff, students, faculty, but it's open to the community too. What an opportunity to learn from the faculty here at the college. I mean, you guys, you do your thing day in and day out in the class, and here's an opportunity to show that off too to the community as well. So, in a fun way.
I think any time we have the opportunity to invite the community onto our campus is just a win-win. Not only did they get to see what we are doing here and the things that we're working on, but it also gives them a chance to show off our cool amenities. I mean, the Capitol Blue Cross Theater is something that took a lot of time and effort to get put together, and I think that between you and obviously theater director Janet Bixler, I think that you guys both do a tremendous job utilizing that space, and this is just one more sort of feather in the cap, if you will, and that we're going to be doing something like this. Yulie, have you ever seen Jaws before?
No.
Soon.
I think.
Yes.
Can we put the song in? Like, can you put this into the podcast? Dun-dun, dun-dun.
If you're paying for the license for the movie, I might be able to, actually. The thing about Jaws is many people say that after they watch Jaws, they never want to go back in the ocean again.
Ooh.
So if you're a fan of going to the beach, you may want to pass on this one. Now, of course, I'm joking. And, of course, this is a classic film, something that I'm going to be very interested to see what direction he goes in with this because myself, I've never done something like this, and I'm actually very interested to see how he sort of sets up the template, and then I'll sort of maybe take a little different spin on this. But as far as I know, like I'm planning on doing maybe a 30-minute presentation before the movie, and then maybe doing a Q&A afterward. But I'm interested to see. I mean, Jaws is not one of those movies that we think about as being an all-time classic as far as the Citizen Kanes of the world. It's an all-time classic in a sort of a different way as one of the biggest summer blockbusters. So I'm not sure if that's the direction that he's going to go into with it.
I'm interested to see. To be honest, my focus is on what themed food we can have there. I mean, goldfish crackers. I'm thinking sushi. I don't know.
That would be very
There's got to be something with the theme.
You could get shark.
Sure.
You could get shark.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's actually not bad.
I don't know. All right, we'll have to look into that.
It's not that expensive either, honestly. Yeah, I actually a really good friend of mine used to work in the Carnes meat department. Obviously,
they have shark at the Carnes meat department.
You got to order it.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
He has all the connections.
It is actually very interesting. But we're very much looking forward to this Humanities Film Series. Jaws will be in January. I'll be doing The Big Lebowski in April, and I know Dr. Roven will be doing one of the Harry Potter films in the summertime. And I believe Professor Davis is still trying to work on what he's going to do in next fall. So we have there will be one every single term. It'll happen the third week of the term, and this one's going to be on a Friday night. So hang around after class, maybe grab a bite to eat at a local restaurant. Come on back for Jaws, and as Adrienne mentioned, we are going to have some themed food as well. So something definitely you guys want to get on your calendars. January 26th, the Humanities Film Series with Professor Reif, and we'll take a look at Jaws. So two big things going on in addition to Adrienne's Featured 3. I guess now is time for everybody's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3.
Yes.
I love that I'm the favorite segment. That makes me happy.
It's everyone's favorite segment, Adrienne.
All right, so number one, I know it is freezing outside. As we record this, I think it's 17 degrees or something like that?
If we're lucky.
But with the winter weather comes the opportunity to ice skate. So we are taking a field trip to Twin Ponds West, and we're going to be doing some ice skating, which I haven't done in a really long time. Yeah. I'm a little nervous. Yulie, don't laugh at me if I fall, okay?
No.
Are you an ice skater, Yulie?
I actually just recently, first time doing ice skating on Sunday.
How did you like it?
Are there any tips? Can you help me out?
Oh, not really. It was awesome though. It's a little bit
go.
different than roller skating, but it's a little bit harder. Yeah.
Great.
That's one thing. That's one thing that I never have been able to do. I've never roller skated. I've never roller bladed. I've never ice skated. Ever
None
in
of
my
them?
life. Never. Not
Okay,
even.
so
Not
Paul,
even attempted.
On the 14th of January, come join us at
Yes.
Twin Ponds West.
I'm
It's a
nervous.
free trip for our students, and we're gonna ice skate.
That sounds like a lot of fun. To me, I'm always just so afraid I'm going to hurt myself. Like I've always stayed away from winter sports because I remember when I was in high school, every single time somebody would come in with a broken arm or broken leg, it was either from skiing or ice skating, one of the two. And so that always kind of soured me to the whole experience. So I've never really been much for going outside and doing skiing or ice skating.
But
like
Yulie
that.
just did it, and she survived, so that should be a
Yeah.
sign that we'll be okay.
Where did you go, Yulie?
I went in Baltimore,
Oh,
by the
okay.
harbor. So they have
Oh.
an ice skating rink, so I decided to do it.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. It's so beautiful down there. I mean, especially in the
is.
summer, but even in the wintertime, it's so beautiful down there too. So, all right, well, Yulie, we look forward to seeing you at ice skating. That's going to be January the 14th. That's a Sunday afternoon.
And Professor Miller will look forward to seeing you.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. All right, Adrienne, what's the second event on Adrienne's Feature 3 for the month of January?
I'm going to give a shout out to one of our events being planned by our Activities Advisory Board.
Yes.
One of the new additions to the theater actually is a really cool thing. They now have a really sweet karaoke system. So we are going to plan a karaoke night. I say we, but it's really them, the Activities Advisory Board. So they're going to have this karaoke night on Thursday, January 25th. and it should be a lot of fun. Obviously, students will be able to pick out songs from the system and then have the chance to stand on the Capitol Blue Cross Theater stage and sing and perform. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Who will be hosting this?
That's a good question. You think it's going to be Malcolm?
I think so.
Okay, so possibly Malcolm.
Well, we don't want to commit him to anything that he's not ready to commit to. But yeah, that's something really cool. And how did you come up with the karaoke machine?
Well, to be honest, the students were the ones that were asking for it. We had a lot of students. I know the Black Student Union, they had their officers and members there were like, let's plan a karaoke night. And we didn't really have the ability to do it. So Professor Bixler really looked into finding a system that would work with our capabilities in the theater and find something that'd be easy to use. So now we can actually do them in-house, which is nice.
Fantastic. Yuli, will you be attending karaoke?
Probably. Because I've been trying to come to the karaoke night when they are offered, but I haven't been able to since now my schedule is a little bit free. I might be able to come definitely on Thursday.
Here's my question, Yuli. The most important part of karaoke is what song you pick. What song would you pick?
Song. I can do simple one like from Bruno Mars, the you can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. Yeah, so.
Well, we got some karaoke on the podcast today. Awesome. Adrienne, have you ever done any karaoke?
Of course.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Karaoke is always fun. It's like you creating bonding and memory with the friends that you do.
To me, it's always... I've got I'm not going to say I have a good a singing voice by any means, but there's certain songs that are good for my vocal range, and those are usually what I try to stick with.
You've got to know what those songs are in advance. Don't find it out on the stage.
Though I have challenged myself a few times. I remember doing 1 Week by the Bare Naked Ladies, and that's always a really, really tough one. And I've also done REM, It's the End of the World as We Know It. I always did that one. Those are a little bit more on the challenging side, but it's been a little while since I've done karaoke, so I look forward to seeing how the karaoke night goes.
I'll probably also be singing This Is My Fight song, Take Back My Life song, Prove Them Alright song. Yeah.
That's a good one.
I love it.
We've had some improv karaoke sessions when we're driving on field trips in the van. Like, we rock out. It's so much fun.
So, one more time, that's on January the 25th at 7 o'clock. That'll be in the theater, and that's presented by the AAB for karaoke night. Adrienne, the third and final event on Adrienne's Featured 3 is...
I'm going to give a shout out to something on our Common Hour series. On Wednesday, January 31st, we have a speaker coming in. His name is Ron L. James. He has a very incredible story he's going to be sharing with us. He was actually incarcerated for 25 years. He talks a lot about, kind of that pattern of bad choices that he had made and basically how he turned his life around. What a powerful message he's going to share. He's an author. He wrote a book called Choices, and he's going to be here to share the message of that book and tell us his story. I think it's going to be really beneficial. Any of us, we've all made mistakes. We've all had things we wish turned out differently, and I think this is a great message to say, hey, just keep on going, and you can change things, build the life you want.
So, Adrienne, you had mentioned the Common Hour series. Is there any of the other ones that you want to chat about coming up later in the term? One specifically I wanted to ask you about. I know that, if I'm not mistaken, you're going in a little bit different direction with the Local Leader Lecture Series in 2018. Can you chat a little bit about that?
Well, that actually it's primarily planned and organized by our foundation office. So I'm not necessarily connected to it directly. I do know that they are looking for speakers, I believe, that are going to be really targeted toward our students and how they will, with messages that they will benefit from. In the past, we've had a lot of great speakers I have been honored to hear from, but maybe not necessarily a message that our current students would always benefit from. So they're really looking at, I think, twisting that so it really fits what our students' needs are.
And every term, that's one of the things I always look forward to is the Local Leader Lecture Series. So I'm looking forward to seeing what both you and the Foundation Office come up with in 2018. All right, for a quick recap, of course, we're going to start off with the Winter Club Fair. That's going to happen on Wednesday, January the 10th from 4 to 6 outside the Night and Day Cafe. Later on that week, it'll be Sunday, January the 14th, free ice skating at Twin Ponds West from 2 to 4. You'll have to register online, or as always with any of these things, you can chat with Adrienne for more information. Next up comes January the 25th, the initial offering of karaoke in the theater at 7 p.m. followed thereafter on the 26th with the first Humanities Film Series. 2 firsts back-to-back in the theater. How about that? Karaoke the first time, and our first Humanities Film Series with Jaws with Professor Jared Reif. On the 26th, that'll be at 6:30. And last but not least, on January the 31st, we'll be in Common Hour from 12:10 to 1:10 with Ron L. James, who talks about his book choices, and that will also be in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. Adrienne, thank you so much again for coming into the Nightly News and chatting about what we have going on in January.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And of course, Yuli, thank you for taking time out of your day for being here. We will be right back with Professor Maria Thiaw talking about her upcoming Reclaiming My Time, not only the auditions, but the show. So stay tuned. Save the date for the upcoming Humanities Film Series featuring 3 of our Humanities and Sciences faculty doing a broadcast commentary on movies that meant a lot to them in their past. They're going to do a little talk back, and they're also going to present the film and take a question and answer session afterward. On January 26th, Jared Reif will present Jaws. On April 27th, Professor Paul Miller, that's me, will present The Big Lebowski. And on July 27th, Dr. Marcy Roven will feature Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. So save the date for those wonderful film series presentations. Welcome back to the Nightly News Podcast. We're sitting here today with Yuli. Yuli, thank you for being here on this break. We appreciate you making a special trip down to campus today.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. And on the second segment of the podcast today, we are so pleased to be joined again by Professor Maria Thiaw. Maria, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. One of the things that we have, one of the major events that we have coming up in the winter term is something called Reclaiming My Time. And we're going to be talking about that shortly, and especially about the auditions that are occurring very early on in this term that we wanted to notify everybody about. But Maria, before we get started, what I wanted to do is talk to you a little bit about an event that you had on campus during our fall term, something called Her Story, something that you did with Professor Mark Huntsberger.
Yes, Her Story, A Jazz Journey. It was a collaboration with Professor Huntsberger and theater director Janet Bixler. And he chose different jazz songs that reflected the civil rights movement. So this was songs that were written in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and that spoke to different things that people were going through at that time. And we paired them with poetry from Reclaiming My Time. And then I performed them while the jazz band played. So we had trumpet, drums, bass, and keyboard, and it was beautiful blend. So it was a nicely attended program, and it gave people a little preview of the what is yet to come with Reclaiming My Time.
I liked a lot what you did. You did a couple things that I thought were really cool. Number one, you live streamed the whole thing. Who was behind that? Was that your idea? Do you have any assistance from anybody that we can give a shout out to?
Joe in marketing, he live streamed it.
Awesome.
And that's something that I really think that, we have a lot of opportunity to do a lot more things like that. I mean, we really do some amazing things here on our campus. And I think that hopefully that's, the first of many live streams, because it does give people that weren't unable to make it an opportunity to take a look at what you guys were doing on campus. And it was so cool, and I heard such great feedback, but I was actually able to watch it because of the live stream.
Yeah, and I was really able to come down there for the second half, so it was really awesome, and it was outstanding performance, and I really like it. And most of the form too.
And I've heard from a lot of the different people who were in Professor Huntsberger's class that it was sort of a class assignment to come. Just really loved it. And one of the things that I love so much about what he does is he is one of the most passionate people you're ever going to meet about his field. But I think a lot of students who take this class really understand and have much more of an appreciation of jazz, and maybe that they never really were exposed to before. You know, depending on sort of what your parents listen to and maybe what your friends listen to, that's maybe the music you're exposed to. But some of this, you know, amazing music from, you know, the past 100 years of our country, I think just a lot of people, unfortunately, don't take the time to learn more about. And I think that this was an unbelievably approachable way to start maybe getting people maybe a little bit more interested in jazz. So I really thought it was excellent and unique how you did this. So how did this all come about? Like, how did these conversations come about?
It was part of Professor Huntsberger's history of jazz class. And in the past, he had done a concert. But this time, we had been talking for a long time about how poetry and jazz goes together. This just, it seemed to just be kismet, like this was the time to do it. So we did. And the great thing about jazz is that it's the first American art form, is the first American music, and it blends African rhythms and European harmonies, and it's very improvisational, and it really speaks to how our country was built and who we are as a whole coming together and our diversity. So I think it's a wonderful thing for students to be exposed to and learn the history of it.
Yeah.
Yuli, what was your impression of the show?
I mean, it was really awesome, and I like the melody that he chose, and it's really connected with the poem, and the poem itself represent, like, it shows what's going on down when we were back in the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really think that's awesome that you had the opportunity to do that. And then, of course, you know, working on some of the material that you're going to use for Reclaiming My Time. So I think we will move on talking about this. Now, fans of the podcast will remember when Professor Thiaw was on earlier, I believe spring or summer of last year, 2017, talking about the much warmer than it is today, that's for sure. So, Maria, this is something that you've been working on for quite some time and that we'd spoken about previously, the American Griot Project. Yes. For those in the audience who maybe didn't hear the previous podcast, can you just explain a little bit more about what the American Griot Project is so they maybe understand, you know, maybe what this Reclaiming My Time show will be all about?
Okay. So the American Griot Project is an oral history project. It's comes in phases. So the first phase is the oral history. I found women over 65 who could tell me stories of their memories of the 1950s and 60s. Some of those memories went back further, but they dealt with race relations and experiences that they had. So the stories range because the women are not all activists. So they were moms, they were girlfriends, they were daughters, little kids even, but they're like women of witness. They're telling me their stories and their experiences. So that was the first step. And majors in communications here actually helped originally. Isaiah Isley, Christine Fusselman helped with some of the interviewing, nice. And Romeo Azandakon as well. So we tape the interviews, and then I go back and watch them and get inspiration, and that's where I would translate the stories into poetry, performance poetry, spoken word. Unlike some of my previous things that I've done, instead of me doing the performance, this is a full stage production with cast of 8 who will be presenting.
What does it take to go from the poetry to then putting them on live in this sort of space? Because for you, this is what you do. I mean, you are a poet. You are a published poet. You've got several books. My question is, that part, I'm sure I don't want to say easy, but it's something you're passionate about, you enjoy. How do you go from having the poetry to putting on something of this scale?
That's a good question, because I'm accustomed to doing poetry readings where mostly what I have to think about is what's going to catch their attention in the beginning, what will hold their attention, and what will be a big finale. Mm-hmm. This was different because I had to make 20 stories become one solid play, one solid story, right? How do you do that? So actually, Professor Bixler helped me a lot in stringing it together and looking at all of the work and seeing what the themes were, because there were recurrent themes from all these different women's stories. And they're different ages, between 65 and 92. Wow. So different generations, but they had some of the same types of feelings and awakenings and different things happen in their lives. So,
do you mind sharing with us what some of these themes might be? I mean, you don't have to give away the whole show, but
sure. There were multiple stories of buses. One white Southern woman I interviewed talked to me about the way Black people acted toward her on the bus, and that she didn't understand that. The things that they'd immediately give up their seat or rise or get out of her way, and she didn't understand that custom. There were stories of riots in different cities that women were witness to or caught up in. There were stories of women being overqualified for positions, for schools, for jobs, and being rejected purely on the basis of race and how that felt. And then stories of love. There's a white woman who fell in love with a Black man and didn't realize the impact that it would have, and a Black woman that fell in love with a white man and had to deal with their parents' issues about that. So big variety of stories, and that's the cast is Black and white, because there were a lot of Jewish women that were active in the civil rights movement, and I interviewed an array of women, so it's not just a Black production.
Yuli, what questions do you have for Maria today?
Will this going to be also a book somehow?
Definitely. We're working on doing the script as a book, as well as a study guide to go with that, so that maybe teachers would want to use this in their classrooms.
I'm sure it'll be an interesting class to learn and see about the culture.
I hope so.
Well, and certainly whenever that comes to be, we'll have to have you back on the podcast.
Yes.
Here's my question, Maria, that forgive me if I asked you on the previous podcast, but how did you not only find all of the women that you spoke with, how did you even go about contacting them? As you mentioned, many of them are up in age, maybe aren't with some of the technology that you might typically use to contact people otherwise. I mean, how did you sort of narrow down who you wanted to talk to, and then how did you get a hold of them?
So that was one of the big challenges. When I was first just kind of thinking about this and not moving very much, like, wow, I should do that someday, I would kind of put feelers out and to my parents' friends or whatever, and talk to them about it, and then like they give you an email address, but they never check their email, or or they didn't have a cell phone, they didn't know how to work the cell phone they have, things like that. So that did become an issue at first, and what moved me to really start pushing and get this done was that a couple of ladies I wanted to talk to passed away before I could talk to them. And I said, oh no, I don't have 20 years to think about this. Let's get it done. So I tried to contact people, but that was an ongoing challenge of how to get in touch, how to explain how the video process works, and what YouTube is, and different things.
Yeah.
There's some folks, and then some folks are very, very much they're on Facebook, and they're doing everything that we're doing, but some folks aren't into the technology so much. So.
And what made you want to do this project? Was it like something that you came up with, or somebody inspired you to do it?
I feel like it was a bunch of little things throughout the last 20 years.
Gotcha.
I do. When I was in college, one of my great aunt, she told me that her good friend graduated from my college in 1924.
Wow.
And that was the first time I talked to someone and got a story about the past that really engaged me, and I wrote an article about that. I was a communications major, and that really was probably the first time I did something similar. But that was writing an article. But then later, as I got older and more professional and more in the academic realm, I started getting these ideas. I saw the vagina monologues, the Unchained Memories, which is, it opens with a gentleman saying that it's 1940 and soon all of the people that were born slaves will be gone. And he went and interviewed them. That really made me think, like, wow. When I started working at Central Penn back in 2004, we lost C. Dolores Tucker. Several civil rights veterans started passing away. And it was like, wow, this isn't going to be living history for forever, even for long. So I just thought it's the time we need to get these stories. And also I was also inspired by, like, students just not having an understanding at all about what was sacrificed so that they could sit in that classroom, so that they could get that education, have those friends, and not be threatened with violence, not be threatened with their livelihood.
Along those lines, I'm actually very fortunate. I'm teaching a class coming up, Media and Politics, and I've taught this class many times in the past. And my whole thesis of the entire class is, I don't care what you do, except that I care if you vote. I don't care who you vote for. I mean, maybe deep down inside I do care who they vote for, but that's not my job as an instructor to tell somebody who to vote for. My job is to try to inspire them to vote, and that's one of the things that I always say. Do you know how many people came before you that either didn't have the opportunity to vote or died trying to get the right to vote?
Right.
For you to be indifferent about it is sort of, I hate to say, but anti-American. And so that's one thing that I always try to talk about. And I think that goes to the point that you made earlier, all of the sacrifices that have been made by groups and groups of generations for us to be and have the freedoms that we have today. And I think that it's sort of sad that people don't necessarily look at it that way. And I'm hoping that by your production, I hope that brings a little bit more light to some of these very serious issues and some of the things that, change the course of our history as a nation.
Right.
Yes.
And I think people will see that some things have made a resurgence, unfortunately, and that we need to fight against bigotry in all of its forms, and maybe they'll get some understanding about why that's important. I hope it will definitely open some eyes, and this was one of the greatest compliments I got after doing the Her Story, A Jazz Journey. A young man came up to me and he said, "Did that stuff really happen?" I was like, "Yeah, I interviewed real women. Those poems were based on real people." And he said, "I'm gonna go call my grandmother." I was like, okay. I mean, that's awesome to take the time and talk to your elders and find out what they went through and thank them.
Yes.
Thank them for all that we have. So,
well, I do want to point out that the show will be running on March 8th through the 11th. That will be a Thursday through a Sunday show. The Thursday, the 8th, Friday the 9th, and Saturday the 10th will be in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater at 7:30 p.m. and a special matinee show on Sunday, March the 11th at 2:30. So we're looking forward to that. But really why I would like to, we'll spend the last couple of minutes of the show talking about are the auditions. Now, these auditions will take place Wednesday, January 17th from 4:30 to 6, and Thursday, January 18th from 5:30 to 7. Now, here's my question. For those students out there who are listening, how could this benefit them? How could this, sell them on joining this production? Obviously, just the opportunity to work with a published author and somebody who's doing, something of this magnitude in of itself is enough to, to sell them. But to tell us a little bit more about how this could be sort of a launching point to somebody's career maybe down the line, not even on stage, just as professionally.
Yes.
Well, there's many things when you think of it from that career standpoint. There's definitely a lot. It's very impressive, any type of communication,
Yes.
public speaking. Those are the skills that employers really want today, those soft skills, and to show that you are confident and can present yourself well. And being in a production too, it takes other skills, and you're showing that you can memorize things, that you can present yourself well, you can speak publicly, that you're outgoing. All of those skills are something that you could use in any field. It's not just for fun, but it's educational. So I believe that the ladies that are in it will probably learn some things they may not have known about before. It could even help them to see how writing and literature is not just a thing of the past. It's not just dead guys, it's alive, and that I hope that they would be inspired to do their own creative pursuits as well. So I think it could be really positive in a lot of ways. And I always am looking for ways for students to boost those resumes. I think this definitely would be good. And I believe that this is not the end either, that this one showing is not the end, that it will continue to go and grow and be performed on other campuses and things like that. So for them to say that they were the initial cast, that inaugural cast, I think they're making history with me.
Now, I know that, again, this may be a little bit too soon to answer this question, so if it is, then just let me know. What do you expect after March 11th at that, probably around 4 o'clock? Well, what is the next move for reclaiming my time going forward?
Well, I would like to do workshops and residencies at other schools and help students to understand how to conduct an oral history and how to use those devices to make stories really clear and effective and vivid, and put on more productions in different places, and allow students to go and write their own things. Maybe they'll pick a different theme. Maybe they'll be interested in Vietnam vets or some other theme, and that's fine, but help them to learn how to express themselves in these ways. So that's what I would like to do. I'm a rostered artist with Jump Street, and so they offer residencies in different schools, and that's something I'd really be interested in doing.
Are you talking K through 12 schools?
Well, I think high school and even in colleges. That's where I'm thinking for this. Maybe even middle school.
Other than maybe, obviously, some horrific things happened during the civil rights movement, but other than that, I mean, these stories are often, ones of hardship, but also, overcoming things as well. So, I mean, the message to me doesn't seem like it would be that out there for a middle school, but, well, I guess that we'll come back to that question down the line.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Well, one more time. Obviously, Reclaiming My Time will take place in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater from Thursday, March 8th through Sunday, March 11th. That's 7:30 showtime, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and a special 2:30 matinee on Sunday. But more importantly, make sure you get out and audition on Wednesday, January 17th from 4:30 to 6. Thursday, January 18th from 5:30 to 7. If you would like more information or to sign up, you can always email Theater Director Janet Bixler at janetbixler@centralpenn.edu. So please make sure to get out there and help, if nothing else, help spread the word, but certainly feel free to come out and audition for this wonderful premiere of Reclaiming My Time taking place in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater at Central Penn College. All right, Professor Thiaw, thank you so very much for spending time with us today, and we would certainly wish you the best of luck, and I'm sure that I will absolutely be there, and I'm sure that the Nightly News will cover this story in a lot more detail coming forward.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and Yuli, thank you again for braving the elements today and joining us here on the Nightly News podcast. It's always a pleasure to have you, and trust me, I'm going to try to get you in here as many more times, because I don't know if you guys know this, Yuli only has one more class, and then she will be a graduate of Central Penn College.
Yes.
So, Yulia, I certainly look forward. And you know what, Yulia, you're in my Projects of Corporate Communications class. Maybe we can have you help out Maria with this production. Maybe that's an idea.
Definitely.
Maybe that's an idea that we
awesome.
can do for your project.
Awesome.
All right.
I look forward to it.
All right, so everybody, for the Nightly News, Sutedjo, thank you so much for joining us. Professor Maria Thiaw, I'm Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.